Why am I so passionate about what I'm doing today with empowering women to learn how to tackle their own home improvement projects? It's because if children see their mothers using a drill or using tools, they will naturally overcome fears about it
Mhm.
and go, my mom hung up a curtain rod. I think I can figure this out, right?
Right.
And so moms are so influential, as are dads, and my influence in the space really came from my dad. However, my grandpa also had a rental, and I helped him with painting. My mom was a wonderful painter, and we just were a very handy family.
Welcome to the Builder Hacks Podcast, your go-to destination for cutting-edge strategies, time-tested systems, and invaluable insights to revolutionize your construction business and elevate your life. Join your hosts, Nate Piper and Keith Meals, seasoned contractors who are not just in the trenches, but are also pioneering the future of the industry through Concord University. In each episode, we dive deep into the minds of the industry's most accomplished building professionals, uncovering their secrets to success and sharing actionable tips to help you thrive. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, our goal is to empower you to build a brighter future for yourself and for America. Tune in, level up, and let's build a better tomorrow together. This is the Builder Hacks Podcast. Build your future, building America. And I'm super excited today. So I get to bring on someone that I've known for a few years now. And Jen and I have had conversations. I don't even know how many conversations. So about getting more women into the industry. And that's been a huge goal of mine. And I've worked with so many people in the industry who are female over the years. And to me, that's been something that's missing and such an opportunity that's out there. So, but Jen's actually, she has multiple different businesses. So whenever I met Jen, so she's got a business called Entry Envy. So what she got into whenever she was remodeling her own home, and I'll let her tell you that part of the story just to go ahead and build that piece in there. But she started that business first, and in her conversations with me, as we've been going through this many, many years now. Well, I say many years, it's been like 2.5 years, so it really hasn't
Yeah.
been that long. It just seems like a lot longer because she's such an awesome person, got to know so much about the business of Entry Envy and what she's created and built that business into. And now she's actually launched a hammers and flip flops community where she's going ahead and helping women actually do projects around their house. So, and to me, that's really cool because I know there's a lot of people who don't want to go ahead and do those things. They've got some, I'm assuming, some fears behind that, and we'll dive into that a little bit with Jen today. So, and find out. So, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Jen. Jen, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, it is so good to see you. It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much. Keith, when we first met, it was actually in January of 2021, and I didn't have any businesses at the time. I was currently managing a law firm. I was in the legal industry for about 18 years, and I was in the middle of a home remodeling project. And so by day, I managed a law firm. At night, I would get the kids dinner and then usually starting around 7 or 8 at night until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, whenever I couldn't do whatever I was doing anymore, I would go to bed for 2 or 3 hours. I'd get up at 6 o'clock, get the kids to school, and do it again. And I did that for about 9 months. That was how long the remodel took me. Taking you back just a tiny bit longer of how that all started. January of 2020, I left a marriage and took my two kids and the dog. And
No
COVID
tortoise?
hit. The tortoise got to come too. Yeah. And then in March of 2020, COVID hit, of course, as we all know, and the real estate market went berserk. And so now I am a single mom in the financial turmoil of a divorce, trying to buy a house at the peak of the real estate market, when everything was cash over asking price, disappearing if it even hit the
Right.
market in 12 to 24 hours, right? And so I got what I could get. Beggars can't be choosers.
Mhm.
And so August 1st of 2020, I moved into a home that was in the neighborhood that I wanted to be for my kids' schools. But it needed a lot of work. And I knew that, and I wasn't afraid of it. My dad was in construction for 40 years. I grew up in the days before cell phones. And so after school, my mom worked at a restaurant at night. And so often I was with my dad and we were either on helping with side job or we were doing something around the house. And it
Right.
was just literally through osmosis. Instead of going home and baking cookies with my mom, I was out in the garage, changing oil with my dad. I didn't know anything different, right? And so but I didn't know how much I learned truly by that. And so my junior year of high school, we had to take the ASVAB test,
Mhm.
and as everybody does, I think they still do that. And my counselor came back to me. I had a class of about 150 students and grew up in Blair, Nebraska. And she said, you scored the highest of every student in the school on the mechanics section and construction. What's going on here? And I started laughing. I mean, like, I don't know. They asked you what a carburetor was. They asked you what all these parts were. And I'm like,
Right.
it literally is that. So one of the things, and I'll keep going, but when I go back to this space of why am I so passionate about what I'm doing today with empowering women to learn how to tackle their own home improvement projects, it's because if children see their mothers using a drill or using tools, they will naturally overcome fears about it
Mhm.
and go, my mom hung up a curtain rod. I think I can figure this out, right?
Right.
And so moms are so influential, as are dads, and my influence in the space really came from my dad. However, my grandpa also had a rental, and I helped him with painting. My mom was a wonderful painter, and we just were a very handy family. So I move into this house August 1st of 2020. I open the garage door and I never had seen the garage because it was for sale by owner situation and that was off limits because they probably had to pull all their stuff. And
Probably.
so, it's Friday night, it's 4 o'clock, and by myself, and I open up the garage door and I'm so excited to like go into the house and it's four walls of 1974 olive green paint in the garage.
That wasn't the color you're going for, Jen?
I'm like, oh boy, this isn't going to work. And I just looked around. I thought, you know what? Here's the deal. This is the first place you start moving stuff into. And if I don't paint this right now, it's like never going to happen. So I
Right.
didn't even go in the house. I put the garage door down and I drove to, whichever big box store I was going to at the time. And I bought 4 gallons of white paint and a paint sprayer. And that was where it started. And I started taking before pictures, and that was my first 24 hours. I just did that project and got it as clean as I could be. And I recorded it. And I went on to record every single project I did in the home. And I actually talked through it. I blogged it. It was called Cheaper Than Wine. I created instructions written. I love to write.
I don't know whether that's cheaper than wine, Jen, just to let you know.
Well,
We,
this
we
was the
work in this
problem.
industry.
Depends on
But
what
this
type
was
of
the
wine you
problem.
get.
I thought that if I remodeled my own house and did that every night instead of drinking a bottle of wine, it'd be cheaper than remodeling the house. But that's not how it went. I drank and I remodeled. But
Much
truly,
better return though.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I had $40,000 of hard costs in the house. Everything else was, and that included, I paid an electrician to do some rewiring for me. And I paid a guy to help me mud and tape because I hate that from the drywall side. But I mean, everything else was me. So I added about $125,000 in value to the home.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it was amazing. And what was so critical for me is that actually ended up being my therapy. That was like the best therapy I could have ever
Definitely.
paid for, was just having this time to think in the middle of the night. So keep in mind this is COVID 2020. And we've got hundreds of thousands of women out of work at this time because entertainment, hospitality, and tourism were shut down. We have
Right.
tens of thousands of like homeowners doing remodeling projects, home improvement stuff.
Mhm.
And it seemed like every time I turned around, somebody was complaining, one of them, that they couldn't, the electrician didn't show up. They couldn't get a plumber. The handyman was late again,
Mhm.
just couldn't get anybody to do this. The bids were so expensive, whatever. And every single construction company just couldn't hire enough people during that time. And
Right.
I just, in the middle of the night, while I'm working all night long and having so much time to think, I thought, this is ridiculous. We have such a great labor pool available that are perfectly capable. I mean, those are creative spaces that were out of work, and people who are
Right.
creative are usually really good with their hands. And I'm like, we have such a great opportunity to be able to solve this labor shortage problem. These people don't have a job, these people are willing to pay. How do you bring them together?
Hmm.
And I thought a lot about this, and that is when you and I first connected. It was in January of 2021, and I'm trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And ultimately, I went down some rabbit trails for a couple of months. And I remember about the beginning of March kind of nodding up there and saying, listen, I hear you. I know I'm supposed to help solve this problem, but I can't figure out how to monetize it. It is not a part-time volunteer job I can do in the middle of the night.
Right.
I'm a single mom with two kids. I'm still remodeling my house and I have a full-time job. That's kind of a big job. So, like, I'll get back to you. Hold, please, right? And I've never been able to let that passion go. But so a couple more months go by. So now it's about end of April 2021. And I'm coming home every day, and I'm such a huge person on first impressions. It doesn't matter where
Hmm.
you are in your life, when you walk into a meeting, to a party, to wherever, including your own home, that first few seconds sets the tone for everything. And people underestimate it over and over and over again. And when you walk into your own home, you pull up to your house and it doesn't feel nice, there's an internal piece of you that says, gosh, is this a place that I want to live, right? Do I want to be
Hmm.
proud of my house?
Right.
When you walk into the garage and it's absolutely a disaster, you there, well, it's just the garage. No, it's chaos. You're walking into the first thing that you see, this place of like not peace and calm. I always compare it to a hotel room. I love walking into a hotel room because it's so clean. There's no clutter. And it's like, oh, I want my house to feel like that every day. That's
See,
not
it's
reality.
always funny because like and I've heard this before from other women whenever I've talked to them, it's like that's always such the focus of the clean, non-cluttered area that just goes ahead and gives you that peace. And it's one of the differences with men, well, at least with me. I can't speak for all men, but it's like for me, it's like it really doesn't. Like for me, it's like it's all about the function. As long as the things that I need that are there, that's what I pay attention
And
to.
you're the only one who knows where they are, Keith. I
Right.
get it. I get
Right.
it. And I'm like that too. My garage is not perfectly clean right now. It also has a full-time business in it, but different story. But I came home every day and I'm like, the inside of my house looked brand new, looked beautiful, but the outside looked like fixer upper. But I'm out of time, energy, and money, and I'm like,
Right.
how am I going to solve this problem without, spending a ton? So I decided the easiest solutions were to paint the garage door, paint the front door, update the front light fixture, maybe clean up the front porch a bit, clean up the landscaping. And I got to these house numbers, and I'm like, I can't even see them. They're above the garage. They're old. One of them's fallen off. And I'm like, maybe we could look for a new house number sign. So I start Googling that. Boring search. Don't need to do that. And the only one that I came up with that I liked was the vertical, and it had house numbers on it. They were kind of modern and floating, and then there was this little planter box on the bottom. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of fun. And I'm like, I'm gonna go make that because everything's out in the garage. And then of course I had to go buy the numbers and yeah, and then I wanted to paint them gold. And so I do this whole thing. I get the sign done, super cute. And I'm like, well, what the heck am I going to plant in this little box? Because
Right.
it's about a 3 by 8 size.
Hmm.
You're going to rot the wood if you water it all the time. It's going to die. We live in Nebraska. It's only going to grow 3 or 4 months out of the year anyway. I'm like, I'm not
Right.
putting anything real in here. So I go to, whatever Hobby Lobby or Michael's or wherever I was going. And I spent about 45 minutes, $38, I remember it, of getting faux floral stuff. And this was it was right around Easter of 2021. And so I get all of my stuff because I'm making it look like it's for Easter. And I go home. Now I have to find my wire cutters. Those are a thing I can't find very often. And then I've got to get Spanish
I feel
moss
your
torn.
pain, by the way.
I know, like where are the damn wire cutters?
Yeah.
And I've got, Spanish moss torn up all over the garage, and I got to vacuum that up. And I'm like, well, this is a pain in the ass too. I might as well water it twice a day. So I started Googling faux floral holiday and seasonal decor kits. And I wanted somebody to just send me a little decoration every month that I didn't have to water representative of holidays and seasons, and I could just switch it out and stick it in there. And no one did it. There was not anyone who did that. I looked at the people who are making signs similar to this. Nobody was shipping anything.
Right.
And it was instantaneous. It was the lightning strike of like, you've got a business model on your house or on your hands. So because it was literally on the front of my house, and everybody came over is like, oh my God, the sign is so cute. Where'd you get it? And I was like, well, it's not the sign that makes it cute. Honestly, it's decoration that's making it cute, right?
Right.
So I decide to go down the path of starting a company called Entry Envy. And we do custom exterior home signs. We also have an interior version for apartments and assisted living. And we ship about 500 monthly and quarterly faux floral holiday and seasonal decor kits all over the country. So that is super fun. I launched that in October of 2021. So I've been a little busy the last few years of building this business. I no longer work in the law firm, but I have not been able to let this passion of women in the trades go. And what's been very interesting is that as I was building the company, I have people that are building our signs, right?
Mhm.
And I'm teaching young women to use a drill for the first time, to use a sander, an electric sander, how to paint, and they love it. And then on the other side of the company, it's more manufacturing because I've got women that are using hot glue guns and faux, floral
Yep.
tape, and like they love it. It's all the crafts. I have a waiting list of 25 women who want to work for me at any given time. And I'm like, this is really interesting. Women
Mhm.
want to do this work. They love this work, but why aren't they working in another
That's a great question. I mean, what have you asked them and figured that piece out, Joe?
Yep. So a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak to, well, probably a few months ago, actually. I had the opportunity to speak to the general counsel for a large construction company here in Omaha.
Mhm.
And we were talking about his view of women in their workplace and their culture and, recruiting and hiring and all of that. And it all boiled down to, he's like, we'll hire anybody who can read the tape measure.
Right.
They won't apply. We don't have the applicants. The next day, I don't believe in coincidences. The next day, I was already scheduled to speak to 30 students that were between the ages of 16 and 18 that were
Okay.
in a program here called Avenue Scholars. And they, it's primarily geared towards students that are not on a 4-year plan for
Hmm.
post-college, but 2-year associate's degree or less, and trades is a huge focus. And so I had the opportunity to speak to them, and my mission was really like to keep them like, you guys are on the right path, you're thinking in the right direction, stay this
Right.
course, there's so many opportunities. And maybe about a quarter of the students in that room were women, young women. And I get done speaking, and every single one of them came up to me and said, how can we work for you? And the light bulb went off. And I said, and what I realized is that they don't have the confidence to go and apply to these male dominated spaces, be it a
Right.
trade school, a union, a construction company,
Hmm.
any of the apprenticeship programs, there's a gap. And we know statistically that, at least I do in corporate America, that, and I might get these numbers slightly wrong, but not much, that men, if they know how to do 50% of of the job description, they're like, perfect, I got it. They apply. Women, if they don't know at least 90%, they're like, oh, I could never get that job. There is such a difference in the confidence, the way that men and women think. So
Hmm.
you're talking
Agree.
about a male-dominated industry that is already really intimidating and not exactly like holding up the welcome signs for women, going, hey, come on over here. And what they say and what they do are two different things.
Right.
And then you've got this confidence gap of women that are going, I don't, I don't know all of that. So I'm not even going to go and ask. They don't know that all they need to do is be able to read a tape measure. And so I am on a mission to change that and to help make women aware of the opportunities that are in
Hmm.
the trades, be it either the daughters that are considering what they're going to do after high school, and the moms that are doing DIY projects in their own home in the middle of the night on the weekends, going to a corporate job that they don't even like,
Right.
and realize like, hey, ladies, you can make a whole lot of money and do something that you love in the
Hmm.
trades. And so that's the conversation that I'm working on right now.
And I love that piece, and I love the fact that you actually know the kind of the why women aren't stepping forward with that piece, because it's one of the questions I've always had. Most of the women that I've had that I've the opportunity to work with, whether they were other construction managers whenever I used to work for other builders, so or whether it's people who own their companies or work in the field, they're usually some of the best workers out there. So, and that's what I've seen. And usually their skill level, and I might go right to what you're talking about, where they feel they've got to know 90% to even think about something like that. Whereas, and I think you gave us a lot when you said 50. We will, all we need is 50%, because I know Nate and I, if we had like no 3%,
10%
we're
and we're
still in.
going full speed.
Yeah,
Uh, so like to me, that is so insightful, because I've never realized that piece. And it's like, I even look at Paige working for me at this point, and it's like, I'm always looking for her to step up. And I'm like, these pieces, like whenever her and I talk, so she's able to run through what needs to happen. Yet whenever she gets on the site, and I know part of it is definitely the culture, there's no question about it. So with it being so male dominated, especially in the field piece of it, oh, it being so male dominated that she doesn't know. And I'm like, these guys are all just normal guys. I said, number one, I said they all know me, and they're not about to go ahead and do anything so that's going to go ahead and offend me. I said they're going to take care of you. They're all open to that, because multiple of them have had female field employees working with them, so they know what that's like. And I'm like, I just want you to go ahead and step up. And that was so insightful. I'm like, so how do I go ahead and create that in my company?
right. So I think that I've thought a lot about this. So I've worked in male-dominated industries for
Right.
25 years. I worked for a group of plastic surgeons for my first 5 years out of college, then for lawyers. And um, both have women, but there's different roles. And I see this too in the trades, right? So about 5% of women are in the field in the trades.
Right.
There's another 10% that are working in administration and the back side, the back
Mhm.
office side. And that's sort of similar in those other two industries that I've been in. Um, but yet every other industry has actually been able to narrow that gap a lot.
Mhm.
We have more women graduating from medical school and law school every year, and have for the last 8 years,
Right.
than men. So we were able to close the gap there. Why not in the trades? I think I think first of all, it's a very systemic cultural issue that is really a product of just the way life is in our reproduction. We have only in the last roughly 65 years had mainstream access, and even at that ish, to baby formula, bottles, and birth control. So,
Mhm.
it was simply a sheer fact of women had to stay home and take care of
Right.
the babies because that's how everybody
The
ate.
only option. Right.
There was no option. And so the first time women really started to come in to the workplace was, or in the field at least, was World War II, when there was
Right.
just no one here. Everybody was at war.
Mhm.
But that number hasn't really moved since then. And so I think that's part of it. So with that being said, we have to address the three P's: periods, pregnancy, and pumping. And these are conversations that
Mhm.
men start to get real queasy about, like, oh God, what are we dealing with here? Right? But these are legit issues.
Well, it's just life is what it comes down to.
Well,
It's
I've got
just
I've got
life.
5 kids. I understand that it is an abundance of things.
It's an abundance of things. But I bet you also know that when your wife was pregnant, she wasn't sitting down with four other kids when she was 5 months pregnant. She's doing everything. And you're like, stop, I'll move that for you. And she's like, I got it. Fine, just get away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, women are tough as nails. And
Mhm.
so it's actually the men that are scared of the women being like fragile, I think, in a lot of ways, than what the women are. We're like, we're fine. We got it. At least the breed that we want in the trades. Like, they're
Right.
like, I'm fine, you know? So part of it is like not like we need to open up the conversations. We just need to be like, okay, this is what we need to be able to accommodate this, and it's not
Right.
that hard. People are, you know, employers all over the country are managing where do you create a private place for, you know, a woman to be able to pump.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many incredible, like totally like pump, like cord free. Like I don't even know what to call it. I mean, they're just slipping the stuff in their bras and they're great. Like it's not that big of a
Right.
deal. So we can overcome all of these things, but we have to open up conversation. So I think that's huge. The other thing that I think is super significant is that most of the time in the world of construction, and I don't know exactly where this comes from. You guys could probably tell me this better. But like you're on the job site at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. Well,
Mm-hmm.
guys, sorry for the language, but you shit showered and shaved and walked out the door a lot of the times, and moms are still getting kids ready to go,
Yep.
packing lunches, getting everybody to school. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we can't have it both ways. We can't ask them to be on the job site by 8 o'clock in the morning when they can't even drop off their kids until 7:50.
Right.
So we have to accommodate that. And then, oh, by the way, who's picking them up? And there's so many conversations about like, I mean, childcare in this country is out of control on costs.
Mm-hmm.
And that impacts the men too. So if we want to all have acquire quality of life, and that includes being able to not be paying more in childcare than what we're making, and we
Right.
need people to help do the jobs. We're going to have to consider different hours in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, okay, like you talk about, you know, road construction, right? And it needs to be done before rush hour. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine. Can we do it maybe possibly between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon as well? Do we
Mm-hmm.
have to have it? Do we have to be off the roads by 7? You know, and not to say that even overnight stuff is out of the question either for women. I mean, I know that isn't okay,
Mm-hmm.
but we just have to keep in mind through all these conversations the childcare because it's all real. It's all related to
Yeah.
the three P's and then the kid piece. So for like my company, and Triandi, we have zero scheduled hours, and the women that work together on teams set their own team hours. And this is what needs to be done, and come in and get it done whenever. This is how many hours during the week we are allotted to be paid. Let me know if there's overtime,
Mm-hmm.
but just get it done. I have been doing this now for 3 years, and I have zero issues with labor. And again, a waiting list of people who want to work with us. They are
Right.
super responsible. They're super organized. They love what they're doing. It's not a fight. It's not a struggle. The other thing that we're doing that's really interesting is task-based pay. And it works really well on the manufacturing side, but
Right.
it's no different than what a lot of times we do for a job. This is the quote. I don't care how long it takes you to get it
Mm-hmm.
done. This is how much you're getting paid.
Right.
And, you know, I came from a union father where, you know, this is your schedule and you get your breaks and you get your lunch. And
Right.
I mean, he and I joke because I don't ever sit down. I take no breaks. I take no lunch. I never have. I don't care who I'm working for, right?
It's the only way you run a business, right? Or at least start a business.
But I mean, even when I worked in corporate, like that was never a thing. Like, you
Right.
know, everybody's got a different mentality around it. But that is a huge, huge part of it. It comes down to this whole kid piece. But again, every other industry has been able to figure this out. So we surely ought to be able to do it in this too. And, you know, I love Cotter's change management model. The number one thing that it takes for people to change is where the perceived pain of staying the same is worse
Mm-hmm.
than the pain of change.
Right.
Well, we are coming into a mode of the next few years of literally not having enough people to work in this industry, right?
Oh,
And so
we're already there as
we're
far as
there.
that part goes. Yeah.
But it's going to get worse.
It's going to get a lot worse,
It's
right?
going to get a lot worse. So we get to the place of where does that pain threshold hit? Where
Mm-hmm.
finally we're saying, okay, gosh darn it, I don't want to meet this Gen Z group where they're at because it's not just the women in that space.
Right.
It's the men too. It's just a different way of
Definitely.
thinking. I don't want to do it, and we had to put in our time and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if we want buildings and we want homes and we want safe roads to drive on, then we're going to have to make some concessions. And if we
Mm-hmm.
don't include women in that conversation, we're excluding 50% of the potential workforce
Right.
that we already don't have enough of.
Mm-hmm. I love that piece, and it's the different hour piece is something that's interesting because I know I have a tile guy right now, so who does tile for us, and Mike's got everything in his life paid for, which means that he's out there and he's putting money away. Hopefully, he's putting money away for his retirement. So he's out there making money, getting what he needs just to take care of himself and put some money away. So there's no needs to be out there. So his schedule is he usually gets in sometimes between 9 and 10. So he usually works till about 3 o'clock. So and then he heads home. And it's the funny thing that I look at. It's like I don't even think twice whenever he's doing that because the level of work that he does is one of those pieces that it's so good that I don't have to very rarely on any of our projects does Mike have to come back and do anything for punch out. So it's just that good. And it's like, so I think like that's an accommodation I give. I don't worry about. I mean, would I love to have him more hours? Of course, I would love to have him more hours because I know what more we could actually accomplish as a company with him being able to do that. Yet at the same time, he's happy, which means that he does good work while he's here. So, and my homeowners get the results they're looking for, which makes me happy. So on my end, and it's like that was kind of eye opening whenever you go ahead and said that, Jen, is it's one of those things that you have to look at, and it's not something that I've ever thought of before. So I was having to give those accommodations, especially on the childcare end, because you're right. If the dad's working, someone's got to be getting the kids off to school. So someone's got to be picking them up. If they're unable to go ahead and if dad's unable to be flexible and take care of one of those things, then it's going to have to lead to mom figuring that piece out, which is usually where it's left with a lot of families. So is to figure that thing out.
Well, and it's not just childcare, it's parent care too.
Hmm.
And we're in the you call it the sandwich generation, where then you're in the middle of you dealing with the little kids, but you're also dealing with your aging parents.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. Dependent is a dependent. And I think one of the things that is I think it's underestimated by men and maybe just not wanting to admit it by those that know it is
Hmm.
that women do have an incredible ability to multitask and
Hmm.
juggle a lot of different things on their
Right.
plate because they have no choice.
Hmm.
And you and I, Keith, can definitely speak about this. If you want something done, ask the busiest person to do it.
Right.
And when women know they have to get this done, and they also have to drop off cookies at school, and they have to go take their mom to a doctor's appointment, and they've got to,
Right.
do it all. They just figure it out. They're like,
Right.
I'll get it done. And they need that flexibility, and they will reward with high quality work product and loyalty if those accommodations can be made. And of course, you have to have the right personality. And what I'm saying doesn't apply to every single person, just like it wouldn't apply to every single man, right?
Right.
It's just, but you hire the right people with that mentality. And I always say, hire the right person and let them do their job. Walk
Hmm.
away, right? The good employee should not be needed, you need the micromanagement of it. And so I think that it's the hour accommodation and it's the flexibility that they need. And as
Hmm.
long as it's not being abused, the work is getting done, it's exceeding, meet your expectations, let it be. But I have also seen situations where those men are threatened by that level of productivity. And they're like, you're making me look bad. Slow
It's
down.
as I say, it's the old union piece there. So when the new person comes in and is killing it, like you need to slow down.
You
Yeah.
need to slow down. Yeah, you know. So it's there's it this is I mean the bottom line is we're talking about thousands of years of culture
Right.
and hundreds of years in this industry, and again we've only really stepped into being able to have women work in this space in the last 65 years or so,
Hmm.
and it's going to take a long time to
Hmm.
change it. So, what I'm looking at is creating a pipeline opportunity of people becoming aware of the opportunities. And so the first piece is for me, I'm starting with the moms, because if we
Right.
can have moms influence their children, both as good role models, but also being aware of, hey, maybe there's something that my daughter or son would be better at than, out of the gates. They don't know what they want to do. They don't have the money to go burn for 4 years in a degree.
Hmm.
Let's look at some other options. That's, I think, a huge piece. Then I'm creating underneath, and so this is the second company is Hammers and Flip Flops. So that first group is teaching the moms how to tackle their own home improvement projects. I did some research, and I had about 200 respondents to my survey. And what I found is that 47% of women have a handy spouse, brother, dad, friend that will help them with the project, or they already know how to do it themselves, or they're hiring it out. Okay, so 47% of my people, let's just call it 50, were like, I'm good, I don't need this. The
Right.
other 50% are like, I don't have one of those people in my life or that live nearby. I don't know how to do this. We're at the highest point in history of single women for whatever, for like
Right.
divorced, widowed, not getting married, whatever the issue is.
Hmm.
And then you've got that group also saying, I don't want to wait for a handy person to come and do this
Right.
for me. I want to get it done. I ordered my curtain rod off of Amazon. It came out. I want it now, right? So let
Right.
me hang it up. Or they can't afford it, and so there's the projects just sit there. So that's the group that I'm targeting to help give them the confidence to be able to do this on their own. The second group in underneath that sort of is then the kids side of it, where I want to, basically do group coaching. If your children are interested in this, let's have conversations about the opportunities that are available. And let's get the basics done. Yeah, I want you to know the difference between a square and a level. I want you to understand. I had the funniest conversation with one of my friend's daughters. She's like, a square is not a square. I don't understand. Why is it called a square? I'm like, but fair point, fair point. Her dad had like asked her to go get the square out of the garage or whatever, and she's like kept
She
coming
spent
in. She's
forever
like,
because
I
she couldn't
can't
find it because
find
there was
it.
no
Yeah.
actual square out there to pick up. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, fair, right?
Right.
Between a drill and a screw gun, let's understand how to read a tape measure. I thought everybody knew what a 16th was, but apparently that's not the case. And
It
so
is not
um
at all.
these are things I'm learning. So anyway, and then the second arm of that is empowering women who are doing a bunch of DIY projects and saying, listen, you guys, A, can go work for a construction company,
Hmm.
or B, you can create your own company.
Right.
And, what does this look like? And being able to help them do that. And then the third, I guess, or maybe fourth piece, because I've kind of got those three already. My next project is construction camps for kids. Because if we can plant the seeds early on, I mean, let's be honest, we got a bunch of retired grandpas out there right
Oh
now
yeah.
who need something to do Monday through Friday, 9 to noon during the summer, right? So
Right.
let's help, kids learn how to, hammer nails and, easy stuff, right?
How to
But
become productive adults, basically, is what it comes down to.
true. But you
Mhm.
start planting the seeds. And, my girls right now are 12 and 14. And I know that if they have the opportunity to take shop class, because we know so many schools, they don't even offer it anymore,
Right.
but they're not going to do anything that their friends aren't doing. But if
Right.
they all remembered when they were younger and did camps and they had fun, they
Hmm.
might. They might.
Right.
So there's a pipeline.
I know the thing that I love about that is, and one of the things that I see, and I know you saw that same opportunity, Nate, as Jen was talking, is that piece of the people that are coming into hammers and flip flops, and it's kind of their first experience with things, or they've had a very limited experience. This is a more in-depth experience if they're starting to do some of the things in their own homes. Though, is those people who the light bulb does come on. And they do say, you know what, this is something that I think I've got interest in. I seem to like it. I'm doing well at it. And like you said, it's them getting the experience that they get the confidence that goes behind it now that they're like, you know what, this could be something. And it's like I see so many different, like for those people like that, it's where do you take them next and giving them that next step? Because if you don't have that, I mean, for hammers and flip flops, your goal is to get them doing. So it was really the biggest thing and helping themselves out. So in realizing that they're capable to go ahead and take care of this without having to worry about anybody else. And it's for those next people, it is what's that next piece and what's that next step. And I would love to go ahead and figure out a way to go ahead and work with you on that side of things because I can see that as being a way to go ahead and develop for the people who are interested or the daughters who see the moms doing these things. So, and they're like, all right, well, I don't know what the next step is because there aren't shop classes. So there aren't those opportunities as much as there used to be to at least dip your foot in to see whether
Yeah.
it's something that you like.
Well, and there are incredible trade schools and programs and so
Hmm.
much available out there, but there's sort of like, to me, it feels like there needs to be a little interim space.
Hmm.
The trial, the test, the
Right.
confidence, yeah. do I want to go down there? So yeah, we could make some magic happen there. Pretty good combination.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for everybody. So on that side of things. Nate, you
I've
had a
just
question?
been, no, I'm gonna make some comments and some statements here. Jen, it's great to kind of like get to know you over this podcast here and kind of listen to your journey and how you've gone down this path. And I think you're on the right track. I've been in the construction industry for the last 20 plus years, and I've seen a lot of things kind of come and go. And we're Keith and I are from the Gen X group, and so it's kind of like we grew up in a different area. You're in the same boat. And you're right. There are so many problems that we're trying to solve all at one time. And one of the reasons why we're starting Concord University is just because of that same thing. And I don't view the roles that need to be done versus men versus women. I just see it as a job that has to have a function that gets to be attached to it. And what are the solutions that we have to have in between? And I've gone down the same thing, and me and Keith have had this conversation multiple times about how do we get people interested and back into the trades? Because when I was in high school, before high school, I had a hammer and a nail and go out and build stuff in my backyard by myself. I had my dad, my uncles, everybody were just, oh, we just do things, right? And it didn't have to be perfect. It was just, okay, that's good enough for me. Let's get started. And that's kind of where it started for me. And then in high school, there was auto mechanics, there was wood shop, you worked with your hands and you got comfortable with it. And that kind of led into other things. And I went off to college, and then I tried to be a stockbroker, and I figured out I didn't like suits and ties, and pulled out. And I love being in construction. I love being able to create things. Most importantly, I love watching transformation. That's like really my passion. And it started off in transformation between something ugly to something pretty. And then that kind of elevated into, I wanted to see the transformation for the homeowner, for what they were going through, to have something better. And now I'm in the transformation of watching my employees go from nothing into something better. And all of that is the same thing of what you're talking about. You're specifically talking about it for women. I enjoyed it, everybody. And I think that there's a role there for women. I'm not going to lie. I was a component of women aren't for the trades for early 2000s to about mid 2000s. But since then, I've started hiring on women, and I started understanding how to work with them inside the trade component. And what I found is I've got a couple of good project managers who are female. And what I found is that if I slow down and I ask more questions with them and then give them more answers, they then grow and thrive. And then once they get to the point where they have confidence, where they can go in and they know it, then they will project that confidence onto every man in the job site. And then every man gets in line, like his mom was like telling him, like, hey, you need to pick this up, you need to get in order. But it's getting them to that confidence level. That shift is a big key. And I think you're on the right track of being able to like expose them, show them, invite them in, give them the knowledge, and then let them go. And I think that's empowering. I think that's powerful. So
I thank you. And I think that you hit on something that is true. Women need more explanation. They tend to not be a just do this. Because I said so. They need to have a little bit more understanding because it might not make sense in their head,
Yeah.
and they might actually be right.
yeah,
They might be
they are.
why are you doing it this way? Like, why don't we just do it this way? And you're like, well, because that's the way it's always been done. Well, how about we do it different,
And we reimagine this.
Yeah. How do we imagine that? But I do think that they want that understanding, and that is part of that confidence. So very interesting. That's great. And I agree too. It is such a rewarding. I mean, in corporate, you rarely get to see what you did. If anything,
right.
the job never ends. It's the same thing over and over, and you never really get to see the work product. And there is nothing better than throwing paint on that wall and being like, boom, there we go. That's what I was talking about,
Instant change.
Instant transformation. Yeah, exactly.